Hi everybody, Mark Sage from the Area Augmented Reality Enterprise Alliance with our latest fireside chat. And I'm really excited to introduce our newest member, Uvisan. We have Luke and David, who are going to be telling us a little bit about what they do and why it's so important to the AR ecosystem. So guys, please introduce yourself and a little bit about Uvisan.
Okay, so I'm Luke Fisher. I'm a director of Uvisan and part owner of the company as well, and I'm responsible for some of the sales and marketing and also quite a bit of sort of product development.
I'm David. I'm sales director for Uvisan. Been with the company pretty much from the beginning, perhaps not right at the very early stages, but been there kind of ever since it was kind of developed. And just to, I suppose, to give a bit more background on the company, Uvisan was actually originally formed by a company called Emotion. They're a location-based entertainment company, and they actually developed the Uvisan cabinets specifically for their own uses pre-COVID. So to give a bit of an idea of where the cabinets come from and the idea behind it all, they have an installation over in Mandalay Bay. It's a virtual reality aquarium, 40-seat cinema. Users would come in, sit down, headsets go on, watch the show, and then there's obviously a need to change over. And in between that change, the headsets then would need to be cleaned, disinfected, ready for the next guys to kind of use the headsets. There wasn't really anything as such in the market at the time to be able to do that effectively. And so Emotion actually developed our Uvisan cabinets specifically for that use case within their own installation. Unfortunately, COVID then hit. And so a location-based entertainment company then had a hygiene product at the beginning of a pandemic. Hence, Uvisan was born, and that sort of was what kick-started us to get to where we are today. And whilst COVID was tough, it's actually since COVID that we've then began to grow and kind of turn into our own entity that we kind of purchased from Emotion a couple of years ago now. So just over 2 years, Luke and I have been part owners of the company, and we're no longer partnered with Emotion. But hopefully that gives a bit of an idea of the background of Uvisan and how we all began.
Just to be 100% clear though, you are a device cleaning company, an XR device cleaning company. I know we're going to a little bit more detail, but that's the key bit and what you do really well.
That's right, that's our bread and butter.
Perfect. Okay, so let's get in a little bit of detail then. So what kind of measurable impact does device hygiene have on usability, longevity, and the ROI of XR equipment, certainly in high use environments?
Okay, I mean, I think simply put, without good hygiene, XR equipment in shared environments just becomes rather dangerous. And I think from that perspective, the fear of dirty equipment is a common barrier we see with people. I mean, either users or educators actually that are advocating the use of something they see as a risk in a classroom or in another environment is a problem. And we know this is a worry that sort of affects choosing VR and XR equipment. For example, for use in therapy where you have high risk patients, or even by users in oil rigs where you'd think these sort of people working in a relatively dirty environment, but they're actually very sort of concerned about the sharing of these items, which are obviously very different from other protective equipment because they're very sort of intimately placed on your face and you're touching them and you're transferring things quite a lot. So I think also in terms of longevity, like anything else, if something's poorly maintained or poorly cleaned, then it sort of quickly diminishes its useful life. And as a consequence, the ROI of that item, if it's measured against sort of, the amortized individual benefit over time, reduces quite a bit. And we know from experience of having gone into people who are using our equipment, how it's helped them, where they previously just had sort of randomly placed VR headsets, it's put them into a position where they started to think about how they keep those things clean, how they keep them safe, just because our cabinets are not just about sterilizing the headsets, it's also about keeping them charged and keeping them secure.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose to add to that, we also hear about our customers coming up against a lot of sort of red tape and things, particularly when it comes to implementing headsets and XR within healthcare. Particularly if you then consider XR being used as a treatment as opposed to just simply a training tool. You know, for example, in pain management. You know, the hygiene element there becomes particularly important. You know, and it's something then where in order to pass things like infection control regulations, you need to be able to prove the effectiveness or efficacy of your cleaning method. And that's something that's quite difficult to do. And so by having the kind of testing and things that we've done with our cabinets, we're able to then prove that, you know, we can remove these viruses and bacteria off the equipment in places where hygiene itself could actually be a barrier to entry for XR. You know, and so hopefully we can act in a way we can remove that barrier.
Yeah, no, great guys, thank you very much. And it's a really important and interesting area, which probably takes me on to the next question. You know, how does a Uvisan cleaning technology compare to sort of the traditional methods in terms of efficiency and efficacy, speed, and scalability, particularly for large XR deployments?
Yeah, I think there's a number of areas that affect how you clean XR equipment. And obviously, sort of efficacy, impact on the equipment, ease of use and repeatability are all important, and also the cost per clean. But there is also an environmental area, an impact there, which we know quite a lot of people have to consider when looking at this, particularly in the larger implementations. And I think the main alternative to using our technology, which is UVC, to eliminate these sort of dangerous pathogens like bacteria and viruses, is chemical wipes. And they've been used for a long time. There are some benefits to wipes, of course. I mean, they're relatively cheap to acquire on an individual basis. They're pretty ubiquitous. You can buy them from most places, but they've got a number of drawbacks. And certainly some of the research we've done, the first one is they require extremely diligent application to really be effective. So it's not good enough to simply get a wipe, smear it over the headset and think you're done. The testing we've done means that we really have to get into every nook and cranny. You have to leave it on the surface, importantly, for several minutes. And this is, you know, to be effective, one, you need to know what you're doing, and two, it's very time consuming. And then they leave, once you've done that, they're leaving a chemical residue, which is usually the alcohol or chlorine based, on the surface of expensive equipment that may over time damage the plastic that it's made of, may mean that the physical, the main sort of attribute of it, i.e. the lenses, become a bit fogged over time. And in addition, although they're cheap to purchase as a one-time thing, actually the aggregate cost of using multiple wipes over many months or years is pretty high. And the environmental impact of that is that you're throwing away an awful lot of usually plastic-based wipes that aren't recyclable. They go to landfill, and as we all know, that's a pretty big problem for all of us. So I think the difference with us is the UVC cabinets. One, they're proven to kill bacteria and viruses within this set 2-minute cycle. So you can be confident, the users can be so confident that when they're when they put the item in the cabinet, put it on for 2 minutes and it's done. And there's no need for complicated training, because really it's about putting the visible surfaces where they're going to see the light. And as long as you do that, so as long as you just use a bit of common sense when you put them in the cabinet, it is going to be effective. And all those surfaces, including importantly the outside, where most of the actual transmission of these bugs happen, are going to get the full sort of effect of the UVC light. There's no residual chemicals, there's no consumables. With these cabinets, you don't actually have to replace the lights for 5 to 10 years, depending on how you're using them. And we've done tests also, importantly, that it's absolutely no detrimental effect on the way that UVC works on the surface. It doesn't discolor it. It doesn't make it less strong. It certainly doesn't affect any of the inner workings of the headsets. And for people, when you talk about scalability, with one cabinet, 20 or more headsets, complete with their controllers, can be made safe in the fraction of the time it takes to clean one properly with a wipe. So that's obviously, all of those things make it a very much more sort of secure way of doing it. And at the same time, you can charge the headsets and securely lock them away too, if you're in an environment where security is important.
Yeah, I think just obviously Luke's covered things quite nicely there. But in terms of the scalability specifically, and in situations where you're rolling out headsets en masse, how do you actually go about making sure you can guarantee that the users, or whether it be patients or students or customers, whoever it is, how do you guarantee that that headset's going to be safe for the next person to use? How can you actually start to put something in place that will make sure that you're not going to pass on any infections between these users? It becomes particularly challenging as you add scale to that. It's not about finding one person who can do it on a handful of headsets. If you start to scale up to hundreds of headsets in lots of different areas, lots of different departments, it actually becomes quite difficult to write processes to be able to do that, particularly at scale. And I think the cabinets just provide a very quick, very easy way to solve that problem. And then, as Luke said, the headsets are all then nicely charged, stored away securely, good to go at any moment.
Thank you, guys. So one kind of last question, and I'm definitely seeing this kind of emerging trend of kind of shared XR usage and devices. The kind of cost point at the moment is that not everybody's getting them, and definitely multi kind of user environments. So that's kind of shaping. How is that shaping demand for automated cleaning solutions like yours?
Well, I think we've certainly seen evidence of organisations making more structured and sort of measurable approaches to this, to XR hygiene. And I think quite a good example of this is something we've done quite recently, which is we've been working with a very large pharmaceutical company in Ireland. It's multinational, and they use a lot of high-end XR. It's quite interesting how they use it, but they use a lot of it in research and also in production areas. And in particular, they use it in clean room areas. So these are areas where the environment is very, very strictly controlled. The air's filtered. It's all about keeping those production and research areas free of bacteria and any sort of contaminant from outside. And people, when they go in there, they're all gowned up, they're gloved, they've got all the PPE you can think of, but they're also bringing these, I think mainly HoloLens XR headsets into the space, because even in a company like that, you don't give everybody a sort of $6,000 headset, and they needed a way. Because they basically had an issue of how to formalize and make repeatable the process of cleaning headsets and other electronics, with people taking their mobile phone in, for example, were taken into these clean areas. And pharmaceutical companies love writing protocols for stuff, and wipes are very difficult to write a protocol for. How you clean a headset, how thoroughly, for how long, it might differ from how I clean a headset. And it's not so with the UVC cabinets, because they assure the disinfection of the equipment into a clean area with absolute repeatability. So I think it's something that we've also started to see in other areas, in higher education, for example, in health and safety functions, where they need to be assured. And it's actually, fun enough, it's an area we're now exploring sort of outside of XR, with NHS innovations in relation to the automation of disinfection of everyday clinical equipment in hospitals, things like stethoscopes, for example.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think as well, perhaps at the other end of the scale, that it's quite unusual now that you can speak to someone who doesn't really know about VR, XR. I think pretty much everybody has had some sort of experience of it. You know, whether it be trying on a headset or something at Currys or Walmart. I think most people have either had or at least had the opportunity to trial it. And you know, being in the situation that we're in, and trying to kind of explain what we do and what the company does, and you know what the cabinets are used for. It's surprising how many people will turn around to you and say, you know what, I was going to try the headset on, but I didn't because I didn't know where it had been. I didn't know who'd used it. You know, what did the previous person have? And it can be a real kind of barrier in that sense. And so, yeah, I think that perhaps as kind of XR grows and develops and things change, it becomes more commonplace. We may find that people just start to accept that the hygiene and cross-contamination is going to be something that you just put up with and accept. But it sort of feels to me, and kind of part of our bet is that actually people are going to start to demand that the headsets are guaranteed to be clean and safe to use. And I think that's probably quite likely that things go that way. And you know, the cabinets are designed specifically to give a really, really easy way to give that guarantee to whoever it is that is going to be using these headsets.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. And personally, I think that the cleaning of the devices will be absolutely crucial. I don't think people are going to accept and you know, want to put these devices on after other people using it. You don't know, like you said, what germs. So I'm, yeah, absolutely, and someone who's been in the ecosystem and spoken to lots of people, yeah, we absolutely need solutions like this. I want to kind of thank you for your insights today. Looking forward to working with you with the area and kind of continue to discuss the importance and I guess more importantly, how companies can kind of engage with you to get these the cleaning cabinets and actually make sure that they're delivering a good service to their users and stuff like that. So thank you very much, guys, and we will catch up again soon.
Thanks.